The night passed peacefully, and before long the first glow of dawn appeared above the ocean once again. A soft blanket of mist floated across the harbor, wrapping the fishing boats in a gentle gray veil. The village remained quiet, with only the distant sound of seabirds welcoming the new day. Ethan stepped outside just as Samuel finished opening the lighthouse door. The cool morning air felt fresh against their faces, carrying the familiar scent of saltwater and pine. "Listen," Samuel whispered. Ethan closed his eyes. At first, he heard only the waves rolling gently onto the rocks. Then he noticed the rustling leaves, the flutter of birds' wings, and the quiet creaking of wooden boats moving with the tide. "It sounds like music," Ethan said softly. Samuel smiled. "Nature has always been singing. We simply forget to listen." They walked slowly down to the harbor where the fishermen were preparing for another peaceful day at sea. An elderly fisherman greeted Samuel with a cheerful wave. "Morning, my friend." "Safe sailing," Samuel replied. The fisherman smiled warmly before guiding his little boat toward the open water. There was no rush, no shouting, only calm voices and familiar faces beginning another ordinary day. As they continued walking, Ethan noticed something carved into an old wooden bench overlooking the sea. The letters had faded with time, but they were still easy to read. "Take time to watch the tide. It never hurries, yet it always reaches the shore." Asterisk. Ethan gently traced the words with his fingertips. "I think I understand now," he said. Samuel looked out across the endless Atlantic. The sea has been teaching that lesson for thousands of years. They remained there for a long while, watching the sunlight slowly brighten the water. A gentle breeze stirred the tall grass around the cliffs, and the lighthouse stood quietly behind them, waiting for another evening when its faithful light would once again guide strangers safely home. Ethan smiled to himself. Harbor's End had not changed the world around him. Instead, it had quietly changed the way he looked at the world. And somehow, that made every sunrise brighter, every wave gentler, and every ordinary moment feel like a precious gift. Several peaceful days passed, and Ethan no longer counted the hours. The village had quietly changed the rhythm of his life. He woke with the sunrise instead of an alarm, enjoyed slow breakfasts without checking a clock, and spent long afternoons walking along the shoreline, listening to the endless conversation between the wind and the sea. One cool morning, Samuel invited him to climb down the rocky path beneath the lighthouse. The tide was low, revealing small pools of clear water among the stones. Tiny fish glided beneath the surface, while bright green seaweed swayed gently with each passing wave. Samuel knelt beside one of the pools. "Look closely," he said. Ethan leaned forward. At first, he saw only water and smooth rocks. But after a few quiet moments, he noticed tiny crabs moving carefully across the sand, delicate shells resting at the bottom, and small silver fish flashing in the sunlight. "I would have walked right past this," Ethan admitted. Samuel smiled. Life is full of quiet wonders. Most people miss them because they never stop long enough to look. They continued walking until they reached a weathered wooden bench overlooking the open ocean. It had been there for many years, its surface softened by rain, wind, and countless seasons. Samuel brushed away a few fallen pine needles before sitting down. "When I was young," he said softly, "I believed happiness waited somewhere far away. I thought I had to travel farther, earn more, and accomplish greater things before I could finally rest." "What changed?" Ethan asked. Samuel gazed toward the endless horizon. "I grew older. Then I realized peace had been waiting patiently beside me all along. I simply hadn't noticed." A gentle silence followed. The waves rolled steadily toward the shore, each one arriving without hurry and returning just as calmly. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, letting the cool breeze touch his face. He listened to the distant cries of seagulls, the rustling pine trees, and the soothing rhythm of the sea. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about yesterday or tomorrow. He was completely present. And somehow, that simple moment felt richer than all the busy days he had left behind. That evening, the sky slowly transformed into shades of amber, rose, and deep violet as the sun disappeared beyond the horizon. Ethan stood beside Samuel on the lighthouse balcony, watching the first stars quietly appear above the endless Atlantic. A gentle breeze carried the scent of the sea, and the steady sound of the waves echoed against the rocky cliffs below. As darkness settled over Harbor's End, Samuel climbed the final steps to the lantern room. With practiced hands, he checked the polished glass one last time, adjusted the great lens, and lit the powerful lamp. Within moments, a warm beam of light began its slow, graceful journey across the ocean, turning steadily through the night. Ethan watched in silence. "It feels peaceful," he whispered. Samuel nodded. "A lighthouse never chases the ships. It simply shines where it stands. Those who need its light will always find it." The words settled gently in Ethan's heart. Later that night, they sat outside on two old wooden chairs with warm cups of tea resting in their hands. Neither of them felt the need to fill the silence with conversation. The ocean spoke softly enough for both of them. After several quiet minutes, Samuel pointed toward the distant horizon. Tiny lights flickered far away. "Those are fishing boats returning home," he said. "Some of the captains have trusted this lighthouse for decades. Many have never met me, yet every night they know this light will be here." Ethan looked at the slow, steady beam sweeping across the dark sea. "Doesn't that responsibility ever frighten you?" Samuel smiled gently. "It reminds me to stay faithful to simple things. Great responsibilities are often carried by small daily habits." The night grew cooler. Above them, thousands of stars stretched across the clear sky like scattered diamonds. Ethan could not remember the last time he had truly looked at the stars. In the cities, bright lights had hidden them. Here, every constellation seemed brighter than he had ever imagined. For a long while, neither man spoke. The lighthouse continued turning. The waves continued rolling toward the shore. The stars continued shining in perfect silence. For the first time in many years, Ethan felt no hurry to think about tomorrow. He simply listened to the quiet rhythm of the sea, allowing every gentle wave to carry away another piece of the noise he had brought with him from the busy world. The following morning arrived wrapped in a blanket of gentle fog. From the lighthouse windows, the world seemed softer than before. The sea blended quietly into the pale gray sky, and only the distant sound of waves revealed where the shoreline ended. Ethan awoke early and stepped outside, breathing in the cool, salty air. The silence was unlike anything he had ever known. It was not empty. It was comforting. Samuel was already awake, placing fresh bread and a small pot of tea on the wooden table outside the lighthouse. "Good morning," he said with a warm smile. "Good morning," Ethan replied, taking a seat. For several minutes they enjoyed breakfast without speaking. The only sounds were the gentle cries of seabirds hidden somewhere in the mist and the quiet clinking of teacups. After breakfast, Samuel handed Ethan a small notebook with a worn leather cover. "I've kept this journal for many years," he said. "Every evening, I write down one beautiful thing I noticed that day." Ethan carefully opened the first page. There were no grand adventures or dramatic stories. Instead, each entry described simple moments. A robin sang outside the lighthouse before sunrise. The ocean reflected the moon like polished silver. A little girl laughed while chasing the waves. A fisherman shared fresh bread with a stranger. Page after page was filled with peaceful memories that most people would have forgotten. Samuel smiled gently. "People spend their lives searching for extraordinary moments," he said. "But happiness often hides inside ordinary days." Ethan slowly closed the notebook. He realized he could hardly remember the small joys from his own busy life. He had always been looking ahead, never pausing long enough to appreciate the present. Later that afternoon, the fog slowly drifted away, revealing the sparkling blue ocean once again. Sunlight danced across the calm water as fishing boats returned to the harbor. Children ran along the beach collecting smooth shells, laughing as gentle waves reached their feet. Standing beside the lighthouse, Ethan watched the peaceful village with quiet gratitude. For the first time in a long while, he felt as though he was exactly where he was meant to be. The next morning arrived with a gentle rain that covered Harbor's End in a soft silver mist. Tiny raindrops tapped quietly against the lighthouse windows while the ocean below moved with slow, peaceful waves. Ethan stood by the glass, watching the rain blur the distant shoreline until the sea and the sky seemed to become one. Samuel handed him a warm mug of tea. "Rain has its own kind of silence," he said. "Many people think only sunny days are beautiful, but every kind of weather has something to teach us." Ethan wrapped his hands around the warm cup and listened. The steady rhythm of the rain mixed perfectly with the sound of the waves below. There was no thunder, no strong wind, only a gentle melody that seemed to calm every restless thought. Later that afternoon, the rain slowly faded. Small drops still rested on the pine trees, sparkling whenever a beam of sunlight slipped through the clouds. The air smelled fresh, carrying the scent of wet earth, salt, and evergreen leaves. Samuel and Ethan walked through the quiet village. Children wearing bright rain boots laughed as they carefully stepped around puddles. An elderly woman waved from her front porch while placing fresh flowers in a small wooden box beneath her window. A baker greeted them with a warm smile, offering each of them a freshly baked roll that filled the cool air with the comforting aroma of warm bread. "Everyone knows one another here," Ethan observed. Samuel nodded. "When people slow down, they begin to notice each other. Kindness becomes part of everyday life." As they returned to the lighthouse, the clouds slowly drifted away. The evening sky opened into soft shades of blue and gold. A beautiful rainbow appeared above the harbor, stretching from one side of the bay to the other. The villagers paused their work for a few quiet moments, simply admiring its gentle colors before continuing with their day. Ethan smiled to himself. Not long ago, he might have hurried past without even looking up. Now he understood that some of life's greatest gifts ask for nothing except a few moments of quiet attention. As the lighthouse prepared to shine once more, he felt grateful that this peaceful village had taught him how to notice the beauty that had always been there. As another peaceful evening settled over Harbor's End, the village seemed to move in perfect harmony with the sea. Lamps glowed warmly inside the cottages, their golden light reflecting softly on the quiet harbor. A gentle breeze carried the scent of salt, pine, and fresh bread drifting from the village bakery. The world felt calm, as though time itself had decided to slow down. Ethan climbed the lighthouse one more time before sunset. Samuel was already there, carefully polishing the great lens with the same patience he had shown every single day for decades. "You've learned quickly," Samuel said with a gentle smile. Ethan looked around the lantern room, now so familiar that it felt almost like home. "I thought I came here to escape my busy life," he replied softly. "But now I realize I came here to remember how to truly live." Samuel nodded. Peace doesn't exist in a different place. It exists in the way we choose to see the place we're already in. Together they watched the sun slowly disappear beyond the endless Atlantic. The sky turned from gold to orange, then to soft shades of crimson before fading into deep blue. One by one, the first stars appeared overhead, shining quietly against the vast night sky. Samuel reached for the lantern controls and lit the great light. As always, the powerful beam began its slow, steady circle across the dark ocean. Far away, a small fishing boat answered with a gentle flash of its own light before continuing safely toward the harbor. Ethan smiled. He finally understood why the lighthouse had stood faithfully for so many generations. It never rushed. It never demanded attention. It simply continued shining, night after night, offering guidance to anyone who needed it. Standing beside Samuel, listening to the endless rhythm of the waves below, Ethan closed his eyes for a brief moment. His breathing became slow and steady. The worries that had once filled his mind now felt as distant as the ships beyond the horizon. Above them, countless stars filled the sky. Below them, the ocean whispered its timeless song against the rocks. And between the sea and the stars, the old lighthouse continued sending its warm, comforting light across the sleeping water, reminding every traveler that even after the darkest night, there is always a gentle light waiting to guide the way. The first light of dawn slowly appeared beyond the horizon, gently pushing the darkness away. The stars faded one by one, while the moon quietly disappeared into the pale morning sky. A soft golden glow spread across the Atlantic, turning the calm water into a shimmering blanket of light. Samuel was already awake, as he always was. He opened the lighthouse door and breathed in the cool morning air. Ethan soon joined him, still wrapped in the warmth of the peaceful night they had shared beneath the stars. Neither of them spoke at first. The sunrise itself seemed worthy of silence. Far below, the village slowly came to life. A fisherman untied his small wooden boat from the dock. Smoke curled gently from the chimney of the bakery. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster welcomed the new day, and the church bells softly echoed across the hills. Samuel smiled. "Every morning is a quiet beginning," he said. "The world never asks us to carry yesterday forever." Ethan watched the sunlight spread farther across the sea. "I used to wake up thinking about everything I had to do," he admitted. "Now I wake up wondering what beautiful thing I might notice today." Samuel's eyes sparkled. "Then the lighthouse has already given you its greatest lesson." They spent the morning walking along the shoreline. The tide had left behind smooth stones, colorful shells, and pieces of sea glass polished by countless waves. Ethan picked up a small piece of pale blue glass that glowed in the sunlight. "It isn't perfect," he said. Samuel gently shook his head. "It is perfect because of its journey. The sea didn't ruin it. The sea shaped it." Ethan held the smooth glass in his hand for a long moment, thinking about his own life. Perhaps every challenge, every mistake, and every difficult season had slowly shaped him into someone stronger and kinder than before. A gentle breeze swept across the beach as the waves continued their endless rhythm. Above them, a flock of seabirds crossed the bright blue sky, disappearing toward the distant horizon. For the first time in many years, Ethan felt no need to chase the future. He simply walked beside the ocean, grateful for each quiet step, knowing that sometimes the greatest journeys are not measured by the miles we travel, but by the peace we discover within ourselves. Long after the village had fallen asleep, Ethan remained awake for a little while, standing on the lighthouse balcony beneath a sky filled with brilliant stars. The air was cool and gentle, carrying the familiar scent of the sea. The lighthouse beam continued its slow, graceful circle, sweeping across the dark Atlantic with quiet confidence. Every few moments, its warm light touched the distant waves before disappearing into the night again. Samuel stepped onto the balcony with 2 warm blankets. "The nights become cooler this time of year," he said, placing one over Ethan's shoulders. "Thank you," Ethan replied. For a few peaceful minutes, they watched the ocean without speaking. Somewhere far out at sea, a faint bell rang from a passing buoy, its soft sound drifting across the water like a distant melody. Samuel finally broke the silence. "When I was a young man, I used to fear silence. I thought it meant something was missing." Ethan turned toward him. "And now?" Samuel smiled gently. "Now I understand that silence is where the heart finally has a chance to rest." Ethan looked out across the endless ocean. He realized he could hear things he had never noticed before: the gentle rustle of the wind through the grass, the quiet flutter of a seabird passing overhead, the slow breathing of the waves as they reached the shore and slipped back into the sea. Each sound seemed to belong exactly where it was. Nothing hurried. Nothing struggled. Everything moved with calm purpose. As midnight drew closer, the moon rose above the horizon, casting a silver path across the water. The lighthouse beam crossed that shimmering path again and again, creating a peaceful dance of light that stretched toward the distant horizon. Ethan took a slow, deep breath. For the first time in many years, he wasn't wondering what tomorrow might bring. He wasn't thinking about unfinished work or distant plans. He was simply grateful for the quiet moment before him. Samuel rested his hands on the balcony railing. "The sea has taught me one lesson more valuable than any other," he said softly. "No matter how restless the waves become, they always find their way back to calm." Ethan smiled as those words settled gently into his heart. Together they remained beneath the stars, listening to the timeless rhythm of the ocean, while the faithful lighthouse continued shining through the peaceful night, watching over every traveler until the first light of dawn began to touch the sleeping sea. A gentle breeze moved through the lighthouse as the night grew quieter. The beam of light continued its slow, steady circle across the sleeping ocean, never rushing, never pausing. Ethan stood near the window, watching the distant waves shimmer beneath the moonlight. Somewhere beyond the horizon, ships continued their journeys, guided by a light whose keeper they would probably never meet. Samuel quietly closed an old book and placed it on the wooden table. "Do you know what I've learned after all these years?" he asked. Ethan looked up with curiosity. "What is it?" Samuel smiled gently. "People often remember how you made them feel, even if they never remember your name." Ethan thought about those words as they settled into the peaceful silence. Outside, the village rested peacefully. A few lanterns still glowed behind cottage windows, while the harbor reflected the moon like a sheet of polished silver. The waves rose and fell with their endless rhythm, as though the ocean itself was breathing in slow, peaceful harmony. The hours passed quietly. Just before midnight, a small sailing boat appeared in the distance. Its tiny lantern flickered gently as it crossed the calm water. Samuel watched without concern. "They'll be home soon," he whispered. The lighthouse beam swept across the sea once more, touching the little boat before continuing into the darkness. A few moments later, the boat turned toward the harbor entrance, safely finding its way between the rocks. Ethan smiled. "It really does make a difference." Samuel nodded. Even a single light can guide someone through the darkest night. Those simple words stayed in Ethan's heart. As the cool night air drifted through the open window, he closed his eyes and listened. The soft sound of the waves, the distant cry of a seabird, and the quiet turning of the great lantern blended into a peaceful melody unlike anything he had ever heard before. In that moment, Ethan understood something he had spent years searching for. A peaceful life was not built from extraordinary moments. It was created through ordinary days, lived with patience, gratitude, and kindness. The lighthouse had never hurried to shine, and the sea had never hurried to reach the shore. Yet together, they had quietly shaped the hearts of everyone who came to Harbor's End, one calm day at a time. The night passed peacefully, and before long the first glow of dawn appeared above the ocean once again. A soft blanket of mist floated across the harbor, wrapping the fishing boats in a gentle gray veil. The village remained quiet, with only the distant sound of seabirds welcoming the new day. Ethan stepped outside just as Samuel finished opening the lighthouse door. The cool morning air felt fresh against their faces, carrying the familiar scent of saltwater and pine. "Listen," Samuel whispered. Ethan closed his eyes. At first, he heard only the waves rolling gently onto the rocks. Then he noticed the rustling leaves, the flutter of birds' wings, and the quiet creaking of wooden boats moving with the tide. "It sounds like music," Ethan said softly. Samuel smiled. "Nature has always been singing. We simply forget to listen." They walked slowly down to the harbor where the fishermen were preparing for another peaceful day at sea. An elderly fisherman greeted Samuel with a cheerful wave. "Morning, my friend." "Safe sailing," Samuel replied. The fisherman smiled warmly before guiding his little boat toward the open water. There was no rush, no shouting, only calm voices and familiar faces beginning another ordinary day. As they continued walking, Ethan noticed something carved into an old wooden bench overlooking the sea. The letters had faded with time, but they were still easy to read. "Take time to watch the tide. It never hurries, yet it always reaches the shore." Asterisk. Ethan gently traced the words with his fingertips. "I think I understand now," he said. Samuel looked out across the endless Atlantic. The sea has been teaching that lesson for thousands of years. They remained there for a long while, watching the sunlight slowly brighten the water. A gentle breeze stirred the tall grass around the cliffs, and the lighthouse stood quietly behind them, waiting for another evening when its faithful light would once again guide strangers safely home. Ethan smiled to himself. Harbor's End had not changed the world around him. Instead, it had quietly changed the way he looked at the world. And somehow, that made every sunrise brighter, every wave gentler, and every ordinary moment feel like a precious gift. A gentle breeze moved through the lighthouse as the night grew quieter. The beam of light continued its slow, steady circle across the sleeping ocean, never rushing, never pausing. Ethan stood near the window, watching the distant waves shimmer beneath the moonlight. Somewhere beyond the horizon, ships continued their journeys, guided by a light whose keeper they would probably never meet. Samuel quietly closed an old book and placed it on the wooden table. "Do you know what I've learned after all these years?" he asked. Ethan looked up with curiosity. "What is it?" Samuel smiled gently. "People often remember how you made them feel, even if they never remember your name." Ethan thought about those words as they settled into the peaceful silence. Outside, the village rested peacefully. A few lanterns still glowed behind cottage windows, while the harbor reflected the moon like a sheet of polished silver. The waves rose and fell with their endless rhythm, as though the ocean itself was breathing in slow, peaceful harmony. The hours passed quietly. Just before midnight, a small sailing boat appeared in the distance. Its tiny lantern flickered gently as it crossed the calm water. Samuel watched without concern. "They'll be home soon," he whispered. The lighthouse beam swept across the sea once more, touching the little boat before continuing into the darkness. A few moments later, the boat turned toward the harbor entrance, safely finding its way between the rocks. Ethan smiled. "It really does make a difference." Samuel nodded. Even a single light can guide someone through the darkest night. Those simple words stayed in Ethan's heart. As the cool night air drifted through the open window, he closed his eyes and listened. The soft sound of the waves, the distant cry of a seabird, and the quiet turning of the great lantern blended into a peaceful melody unlike anything he had ever heard before. In that moment, Ethan understood something he had spent years searching for. A peaceful life was not built from extraordinary moments. It was created through ordinary days, lived with patience, gratitude, and kindness. The lighthouse had never hurried to shine, and the sea had never hurried to reach the shore. Yet together, they had quietly shaped the hearts of everyone who came to Harbor's End, one calm day at a time. Morning arrived with a sky so clear that the ocean reflected every shade of blue above it. A gentle breeze carried the fresh scent of salt water through the open windows of the lighthouse. Ethan woke to the familiar sound of seagulls circling above the cliffs and the soft rhythm of waves meeting the shore below. He stepped outside and found Samuel watering a small garden beside the lighthouse. There were only a few flowers, some lavender, wild daisies, and climbing roses that had grown around the old stone wall for many years. "I didn't know you kept a garden," Ethan said. Samuel smiled as he poured another can of water onto the flowers. "A lighthouse gives light to the sea," he replied, "and a garden gives peace to the land. Both deserve care." Ethan knelt beside him, gently pulling a few tiny weeds from the soil. The work was simple, almost effortless, yet it filled the quiet morning with a comforting sense of purpose. Bees drifted lazily from flower to flower while butterflies rested on bright petals, completely undisturbed by the stillness around them. After a while, they sat beneath the shade of an old pine tree overlooking the coastline. Samuel pointed toward the endless horizon. "Do you see that line where the sea meets the sky?" Ethan nodded. "It always looks as though you could reach it," Samuel continued, "but no matter how far you travel, the horizon gently moves ahead. Life is much the same. If we spend all our time chasing the next horizon, we forget to enjoy the beautiful place where we're already standing." Ethan remained quiet, letting those words settle gently in his mind. As the afternoon sun warmed the cliffs, the village carried on with its peaceful rhythm. Children flew colorful kites near the beach, fishermen laughed as they repaired their boats, and neighbors greeted one another with warm smiles that expected nothing in return. Watching them, Ethan realized something had quietly changed inside him. He no longer wished to leave Harbor's End as quickly as he once had. Instead, he found himself hoping each peaceful day would last just a little longer, allowing the gentle lessons of the sea, the lighthouse, and Samuel's quiet wisdom to become a lasting part of his own heart. One crisp morning, the sky was perfectly clear. The sunrise spread slowly across the horizon, painting the ocean with gentle shades of gold, peach, and soft blue. The sea looked as smooth as polished glass, reflecting the light so beautifully that it seemed as though the sky had gently settled upon the water. Samuel and Ethan walked toward the end of the old wooden pier before the rest of the village had awakened. The only sounds were the distant cries of seagulls and the quiet splash of tiny waves beneath the weathered planks. Samuel stopped and rested his hands on the railing. "When I first became the lighthouse keeper," he said softly, "I believed my purpose was simply to keep the light burning. But over the years, I learned that the lighthouse was also keeping a light alive inside me. Ethan listened carefully. How did it do that? He asked. Samuel smiled as he watched a fishing boat glide peacefully across the calm sea. It reminded me every single day that even the smallest acts of kindness and responsibility matter. Polishing one window, greeting one stranger, sharing one warm cup of tea. These things seem small, but together they create a meaningful life. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. They simply watched the sunlight grow brighter across the water. As they walked back through the village, Ethan noticed details he had overlooked before. A gardener carefully watering colorful flowers outside a cottage. A father teaching his young daughter how to tie a fishing knot. An old dog sleeping peacefully in a patch of warm sunlight. Every ordinary moment carried a quiet beauty that asked for nothing except to be noticed. That afternoon, Ethan returned to the lighthouse alone while Samuel rested in his favorite chair. He slowly climbed the spiral staircase and stood beside the great lantern. Warm sunlight poured through the crystal-clear glass, filling the room with a peaceful glow. He gently placed his hand on the polished brass railing and smiled. For the first time in many years, he no longer felt like a traveler searching for something missing. Instead, he felt as though he had finally arrived exactly where his heart needed to be. Outside, the endless Atlantic rolled quietly toward the shore, carrying with it the same gentle rhythm that had comforted generations before him and would continue to do so for many years yet to come. As another gentle evening settled over Harbor's End, the village slowly grew quiet. One by one, the cottage windows glowed with warm golden light, while the last fishing boats returned to the harbor. The peaceful sound of water lapping against the wooden docks echoed softly through the cool evening air. Ethan climbed the familiar path to the lighthouse, where Samuel was standing quietly on the balcony. Together they watched the sun sink below the horizon, leaving behind a sky painted with soft shades of orange, pink, and deep purple. "It never grows old," Ethan whispered. Samuel smiled. "No. Beauty never asks to be new. It simply asks us to notice." A comfortable silence settled between them as the final light of day disappeared. Soon, Samuel lit the great lantern, and its warm beam began its slow, steady journey across the darkening sea. Far away, a single ship answered with a tiny flash of light. Ethan wondered who might be aboard that ship. Perhaps a father returning home to his family. Perhaps a young sailor seeing this coastline for the very first time. Whoever they were, they would never know the quiet care that kept the lighthouse shining every night. Yet somehow, that didn't matter. Samuel rested his hands on the old wooden railing. "The best things we do are often the things no one ever sees," he said softly. Ethan nodded. "I think I'm beginning to understand." The cool breeze carried the scent of the sea as thousands of stars slowly filled the sky above them. The ocean reflected their gentle light, creating the feeling that the heavens stretched endlessly in every direction. For a long while, they simply stood together, listening to the steady rhythm of the waves below. Nothing needed to be fixed. Nothing needed to be rushed. The world was exactly as it should be. As the lighthouse continued sending its comforting beam across the sleeping Atlantic, Ethan felt a quiet promise growing within his heart. Wherever life might lead him after Harbor's End, he would remember this place. He would remember the patient sea, the peaceful mornings, the silent sunsets, and the wise old keeper who had taught him that a calm heart is not found by escaping life, but by learning to move through it with kindness, gratitude, and gentle purpose. That afternoon, a gentle breeze drifted through the pine trees as Ethan and Samuel slowly made their way back to the lighthouse. The sunlight filtered through the branches, creating soft patches of light along the narrow path. Every step felt unhurried, and neither man seemed eager to reach their destination. The journey itself was enough. As they reached the cliff, the vast Atlantic stretched before them, calm and endless. The water sparkled beneath the afternoon sun, while a pair of sailboats moved quietly across the horizon. Ethan rested his hands on the old wooden fence, taking in the peaceful view. "I've never seen the ocean look so calm," he said. Samuel smiled. "The ocean has always been this calm. The difference is that your mind has become quiet enough to notice it." Ethan stood silently, thinking about those words. A short while later, they returned to the lighthouse. Samuel unlocked a small wooden chest tucked beneath the staircase. Inside were dozens of old postcards, each sent by sailors from distant places around the world. Some came from quiet harbors in Maine, others from small islands, and a few from ports across the Atlantic. Ethan carefully picked up one of the faded cards. "What do they all say?" he asked. Samuel's eyes softened with gratitude. "Most of them simply say thank you." "For what?" "For keeping the light shining." Ethan slowly looked toward the great lantern above them. Night after night, year after year, it had guided strangers who would never know the quiet man caring for it. Samuel gently closed the chest. "We don't always get to see the lives we've touched," he said. "Sometimes the greatest kindness happens quietly, without expecting recognition." As evening approached, the sky slowly turned into soft shades of amber and violet. The first stars appeared above the sea, and the familiar lighthouse beam began its peaceful circle once again. Ethan watched its warm light sweep across the water and felt a quiet happiness settle deep within him. He finally understood that a life filled with purpose did not have to be loud or extraordinary. Sometimes, simply showing up every day with patience, kindness, and a caring heart was more than enough to brighten someone else's journey through the darkness. As another peaceful evening settled over Harbor's End, the village seemed to move in perfect harmony with the sea. Lamps glowed warmly inside the cottages, their golden light reflecting softly on the quiet harbor. A gentle breeze carried the scent of salt, pine, and fresh bread drifting from the village bakery. The world felt calm, as though time itself had decided to slow down. Ethan climbed the lighthouse one more time before sunset. Samuel was already there, carefully polishing the great lens with the same patience he had shown every single day for decades. "You've learned quickly," Samuel said with a gentle smile. Ethan looked around the lantern room, now so familiar that it felt almost like home. "I thought I came here to escape my busy life," he replied softly. "But now I realize I came here to remember how to truly live." Samuel nodded. "Peace doesn't exist in a different place. It exists in the way we choose to see the place we're already in." Together they watched the sun slowly disappear beyond the endless Atlantic. The sky turned from gold to orange, then to soft shades of crimson before fading into deep blue. One by one, the first stars appeared overhead, shining quietly against the vast night sky. Samuel reached for the lantern controls and lit the great light. As always, the powerful beam began its slow, steady circle across the dark ocean. Far away, a small fishing boat answered with a gentle flash of its own light before continuing safely toward the harbor. Ethan smiled. He finally understood why the lighthouse had stood faithfully for so many generations. It never rushed. It never demanded attention. It simply continued shining, night after night, offering guidance to anyone who needed it. Standing beside Samuel, listening to the endless rhythm of the waves below, Ethan closed his eyes for a brief moment. His breathing became slow and steady. The worries that had once filled his mind now felt as distant as the ships beyond the horizon. Above them, countless stars filled the sky. Below them, the ocean whispered its timeless song against the rocks. And between the sea and the stars, the old lighthouse continued sending its warm, comforting light across the sleeping water, reminding every traveler that even after the darkest night, there is always a gentle light waiting to guide the way. The evening arrived slowly, as if the sun itself did not wish to leave Harbor's End. Soft golden light rested upon the rooftops, and the calm Atlantic shimmered like liquid glass. Ethan walked along the narrow path leading to the cliffs, feeling the cool breeze brush gently against his face. Every breath seemed deeper than the last, filling him with a quiet sense of peace. When he reached the lighthouse, Samuel was sitting on the old wooden bench with a small notebook resting on his lap. He looked up with a welcoming smile. "I've been waiting for the sunset," Samuel said. Ethan sat beside him. "So have I." For several minutes, neither of them spoke. They simply watched the sky change its colors. Golden light slowly became orange, then shades of rose and lavender spread across the horizon. The sea reflected every color, turning the water into a beautiful painting that changed with every passing moment. Samuel gently closed his notebook. I've watched thousands of sunsets from this hill, he said softly, and not one has ever been exactly like another.
Ethan smiled. Maybe that's why they're so special. Samuel nodded.
The world quietly reminds us every day that change can be beautiful.
A flock of seabirds crossed the glowing sky before disappearing toward the distant coastline.
The sound of gentle waves echoed against the rocks below, steady and comforting, just as they had been for countless years. As darkness slowly settled over the village, Samuel rose to light the great lantern once again. Ethan followed him up the winding staircase. The familiar ticking of the old clockwork filled the quiet room as Samuel carefully adjusted the lamp. Within moments, the great beam began its slow journey across the ocean. Ethan watched it sweep over the water with calm certainty. "It never grows tired," he whispered.
Samuel smiled. "Neither does hope. As long as even one light continues to shine, someone somewhere will find the courage to keep going."
Outside, the stars slowly filled the night sky while Harbor's End drifted peacefully to sleep. The lighthouse stood proudly upon the cliffs, its warm light reaching far beyond the darkness, reminding every traveler that even the longest journey feels gentler when guided by patience, kindness, and a peaceful heart.